into detail about her alleged sexual encounter with Trump, leading the judge to scold the prosecution about her degree of detail. Trump is accused of falsifying business records tied to paying Daniels to stay quiet about an alleged affair just prior to the 2016 election. The state of Washington could see its first ever black governor. Ilona Kearney is the only female candidate in the race to become the next governor. She's running against Attorney General Bob Ferguson and State Senator Mark Mullet for the Democratic nomination. If elected, the Army veteran would be the state's third female governor. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Every day a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year. In their wait, sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A monumental development for the WNBA. For the first time in the league's 27-year history, every team will have charter flights for all road games this season. In the previous 26 years, all teams were forced to travel on commercial flights. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert said the use of private jets will help address concerns of travel fatigue for players and safety concerns when players had to walk through airports. The WNBA's 12 teams will play 40 regular season games, 20 on the road. The NBA will announce its Most Valuable Player Award today. The winner will be revealed on TNT's Inside the NBA pregame show. The three finalists are Luka Doncic of Dallas, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of Oklahoma City, and Denver center Nikola Jokic. Clippers guard Russell Westbrook is a finalist for the NBA's Social Justice Champion Award. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Hi, it's Tavis Smiley. First, thank you for your support of KBLA Talk 1580. We deeply appreciate you. So, I get asked all the time, Tavis, when are you going to bring back that State of the Black Union symposium you used to do? You know the one where you had all those black intellectuals on stage every year and everybody watched all day live on C-SPAN? Yeah, I know the one. Let's bring them back. Well, I am pleased to tell you that if you go to KBLA1580.com right now, you can sign up to be in the audience here in Los Angeles when we go back live on C-SPAN with a stage full of black thinkers and influencers for a historic conversation. America has never seen a stage full of black folk talking about the urgency of now. Climate justice, climate equity, climate resilience. It's going down Tuesday, June 18th, 4 to 7 p.m. at the California Science Center in Exposition Park. Admission is free, but you must register at KBLA1580.com. Once we reach capacity, you'll have to watch us on C-SPAN. But if you want to be in the room when we go live from Los Angeles, Tuesday, June 18th, head to KBLA1580.com right now to reserve your seat. Caring about the climate, caring about the community. With KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black.
First things first. First things first, it's the DU General, Money P. I'ma put you up on the schedule, 6 to 9, 8 weekdays, not doing Saturdays. We got a lot to talk about, so much to pedal through. Unapologetic, progressive. Tune to KBLA 1580 to get the map. With your ancestors' favorite radio station. First black on talk radio, left side of the nation. Me and Dominique DiPrima go way back. Spotty making sure the station stays black. Discussing all the issues in our community. The host of Black and Brown and others find unity. So let's talk about it. How baby began to prove it. Digital underground, always down with the movie. So we tune in. First things first with the queen of Black Talk Radio, Dominique DiPrima. Go, sis.
KBLA Talk 1580, good morning and God bless. I'm Dominique DiPrima. This show is called First Things First, and my first thing today and every day, giving Thanksgiving praises and asking for blessings from God, asking for the blessings of the ancestors and the elders, and getting it going around here. It is a Wealth Building Wednesday, so you will meet a Black-owned or BIPOC or women or socially innovative company. And, of course, for those who know, you know, hour one, we typically look to the left coast, what's happening here on the Pacific Ocean side of town. Hour two, we go national, international, and beyond. And in the third hour, we do a deep dive with a person of interest or a hot topic. Today's a little of both. We're going to be talking family law. You can bring your problems to the table. Judge Maybelline Ephraim joins me. Of course, she's celebrating Unsung Fathers, so we'll give some love to the fathers, and she is an attorney as well as having been a judge and a TV judge. So that will be fun, and you are always invited to call in 800-920-1580, 800-920-1580 every hour. I would love to hear from you because that is what we do around here: reciprocity, conversation, fellowship, and a little fighting. I'm happy to have joining me this morning as my partner in politics for our Left Coast Hour, the recently elected chair of the California Democratic Party Progressive Caucus. She's not that recent anymore, I guess. She's a former STEM teacher from Watts, a youth mentor, and a mama to a son with special needs. She's a community organizer. And, of course, you remember her from her campaign for state assembly, which something tells me we may be hearing something similar again. Fatima Iqbal Zubair, welcome back.
Hi, Dominique. I'm happy to also talk today as Enviro-Voters as well. But nice to be here.
You got so many jobs. I mean, you know, you got jobs. Yes, and we always want to talk from the perspective of Enviro-Voters because for us at KBLA, the climate justice piece is our massive commitment for the year that we are currently in. And part of that is because the conversation many times doesn't include Black people and people of color when we talk about environmental issues, even though we are the ones that bear the brunt of the impact in many situations. So let's start with Enviro-Voters since you brought it up. What is the work that you guys are doing in general, and how are we bringing in more of the people that are most impacted to the conversation?
Yeah, thank you, Dominique. It's so important. So the work we do at Enviro-Voters is, we really do statewide work, but our organization says that we have the solutions to a lot of the climate crisis and inequities, like you're saying. We just don't have the political will. So our organization really tries to, hold our electeds accountable to doing that work, to making sure that we solve the issues and the impacts that we have.
When the organization is called Enviro-Voters, and we always hear about one issue voters or people, or what are our priorities as the electorate. Is the issue of climate justice, is it moving up in the priority order for Black people and BIPOC people? I feel like it's, kind of long been the bastion of, liberal white folks.
Yeah, it definitely is. I know our organization does polling across the state. And, just with all people, it generally ends up being one of the top issues, especially now as we're seeing, those wildfires. We're seeing, a lot of the impacts of extreme heat, which is one of the highest causes of death of climate change. A lot of these issues are happening in low-income communities, BIPOC communities. And so people are just, feeling it so much more. So I do think that it is becoming a top issue. And, you look at health conditions, the issues happening like in communities like Carson and Watts with the toxic waste. People are understanding why they're getting sick. And, it's pretty clear that, it has to do with the environment they're living in.
I mean, we found KBLA Talk 1580. We did some polling around this, and we found that black voters in LA County are very concerned about the environment more than it's typically sort of assumed. And I feel like maybe we don't frame it in the same way, like you just said. It's what is hitting us, the oil wells in communities where we work and play and live. The disproportionate foul air. So how do you activate those voters, for 2024 or any, important election? How do we activate those voters, and how do we deepen the understanding of which candidates are allies to us having a habitable planet?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So absolutely right. Like, our organization is also about voters, which I forgot to mention. So we focus on, climate bills, environmental justice bills, environmental bills, but we also focus on, democracy and voting rights bills. So how we activate those voters is a number of ways, right? We talk about issues, in the way that, communities can understand it. And our organization actually has an arm that actually does, election work and endorsements and stuff like that because of that reason, right? Because we feel like this is a two-tiered issue. It's not just solving policies in Sacramento. It's making sure we have the right people in Sacramento to solve those policies. And so that's why a big part of our work is actually the elections work, endorsements, but also we support bills like referendum reform. I remember Brian had a bill last year so that folks understand, what's on the ballot. So I don't know if you all have talked about, what the oil companies are putting forth in the election this cycle, which is a vote to overturn the buffer zone law. You talked about oil wells. There was a law passed that created a buffer zone between where people live, work, and play, and how far drilling can be. And, the polluters are trying to overturn that law. And so what passed last year was a bill that made it easier for voters to understand that, to ask them, do you want to keep this law or overturn the law? And even something as simple as that was, not the case before when you had these referendums coming up. It was very confusing if you remember those petition signers that come around the grocery stores and, say things like, do you want your gas prices to go up, right? Which is not the case.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And by the way, just so people know, those folks are paid.
Right.
Like, they're paid by signature, and many of them don't really care about the issue. No shade. They just are trying to make a buck.
Yep. Exactly. That's true. So not only do we support climate bills, for that reason, we support bills that make it easier for folks to vote, whether it's things like lowering the voting age or making it easier to understand those, those complicated referendums. And there's another bill this year to build off of, Assemblyman O'Brien's bill, which is basically listing, the funders of a lot of these folks that put up these referendums, because it's important to know who's paying for it. So.
Okay, so I wasn't tracking that, Fatima, but I feel like when I look at the booklet, it does say who supports the bill, but I guess those are organizations that are proponents of it as opposed to the actual people bankrolling it. Is that the difference here?
That is a huge difference. If you remember when there's elections or when there's, other referendums or campaigns going on like this, right? You can make an organization sound really nice, right? You don't have to call yourself.
Yeah.
You don't have to call yourself Big Oil. You can say, Californians for a just economy, right? Or something crazy like that.
Which is exactly the kind of thing they make up. Yeah.
Right.
It's usually the opposite of what they actually are,
Exactly.
Californians for human rights and justice means we want to be able to put you in jail without reading you your Miranda rights or whatever. That's usually what they do. And it is really confusing. But, okay, so now instead of just whatever that organization is, Californians who love black people, which is really the KKK, we will now know who funds that group, which is more revealing, right?
Right, exactly.
Californians for the Environment, brought to you by Shell Oil, paid for by, yeah. So how likely is that to pass?
You know, there is, thankfully, a campaign against it. There's a lot of folks that are mad that the oil companies are putting this up because it took many years for this law to pass the legislature. You know, we talk about black and brown folks and who this is impacting. This bill, when it passed, was led by organizations like SEHA Alliance, that really fought for this buffer zone, right? Because their communities are literally dying, right, from pollution.
Yeah, because being right next to an oil well increases. I mean, there's tons of data, right? It increases asthma and all kinds of other problems that folks have, and so it makes sense for there to be a buffer zone. And there seems to be an automatic buffer zone in, Beverly Hills and Brentwood and such, but not in our communities. Anyway, I digress. So you think that people's anger around, the fact that these folks are repealing this, trying to repeal something that took years to put in place, could activate people at the polls?
Yeah, I do, and I think the fact that what's on the paper and the ballot in front of them is easier to read, right, is going to make a huge difference as well, right? People have the choice to keep the law or overturn the law, and it wasn't the case before, right? There could be all sorts of word jargon on there, and it can be very confusing. So I think, the ease of understanding what people are voting for, and also the fact that, like you mentioned, climate justice is an important issue for black and brown people. So I think, and also there's money that the side other than oil is also trying to raise, and there's a lot of angry people that don't like what big oil is doing that are donating. So,
I mean, we saw that with the fast food law, right? We passed wage increases for fast food workers, then the industry tried to take it to the ballot box, but it seems like there was some, not just there was behind the scenes negotiation with the governor and labor, and a compromise was reached, right?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. So hoping that will be the case in this case as well. Yeah.
Talking with Fatima Iqbal Zubair, and you are very welcome to get in the conversation. 800-920-1580. 800-920-1580. We've talked about this before in the past, about the explosion of warehouses in the Inland Empire. LA Times today has an article about how Kern County is now looking to build a bunch of these warehouses. I want to look at that and other issues that we may not think of as environmental issues, but in fact they are. We have a great expert on to help us deal with that, and a progressive who can put that lens on many of the issues affecting the Golden State. We continue when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
She's reclaiming her time on KBLA Talk 1580. More First Things First with Dominique Baraka when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580 is the fastest growing talk radio station in Southern California, home to 50,000 watts and an audience reach of 12 million listeners. KBLA Talk 1580 is a pioneer for black audio content, including our groundbreaking $2 million climate justice campaign and the most loyal, influential audience. According to an independent research study by the polling firm Enviro-Voters, for the second consecutive year, KBLA Talk 1580 is the most trustworthy, reliable, and credible news source for black audiences and beyond in Southern California. Let KBLA Talk 1580 power your advertising dollars. Our omni-channel custom marketing solutions are specifically tailored to connect with your ideal target audience. We leverage audio, podcasts, streaming, digital, social media, and local activations to get your message out to the black community. Get in touch with our advertising team today at advertising@KBLA1580.com. That's advertising@KBLA1580.com. KBLA 1580. We've got you black.
What's that sound? That's the sound of Downy Unstoppable scent beads going into your washing machine and giving your clothes freshness that lasts all day long. There it is again. It's like music to your ears, or more like music to your nose. That freshness is irresistible. Let's get a Downy Unstoppables bottle shake. And now a Smith solo. Nice. Get 6 times longer lasting freshness plus odor protection with Downy Unstoppables in Wash Scentsy. We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the voice of reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the voice of reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 151880. We've got your black.
The thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it hurts to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. Only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer's suggested price. However, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer. Excludes 8.
Your ancestors' favorite radio station, and your favorite morning show host. Let's get back to Dominique DiPrima right now.
Okay, so before we hop on these warehouses, we talked a little bit about this whole, controversy around the environmental advocates suing the Metro over this gondola project from Union Station to Dodger Stadium, which they say is going to relieve a lot of traffic. It's the LA Parks Alliance. It's a group of different advocate groups, I understand. And I was confused by that because it seems like the plan for it is to take cars off the road, which seems like it could be a good thing, but they say it will impact land and airspace of an historic park and destroy trees and displace wildlife. So is this, sometimes we get, labor or projects that seem like they are going to help, but the cost-benefit analysis isn't clear. Can you help me get to the bottom of this, Fatima Iqbal Zubair?
Yeah, sure. So, you're absolutely right. Sometimes, there are great projects, but the appropriate environmental impact isn't kind of assessed, right? Whenever we have development of any kind, it's important to see what land it's going over, who it's going to be built near, what's the noise pollution, right? Mm-hmm. All of that. And so a lot of times in communities that are lower income, projects are really rushed, and that doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. I myself have, worked in a school and lived in Carson and, areas where, you've had projects and development just built and people are living on that ground and getting sick from it. And so I think that's what the community is asking for, right, which is making sure there's things like an environmental impact report done first to make sure that, that they don't have this environmental impact from projects.
So it doesn't necessarily mean shutting down the project, but it could mean slowing it down significantly.
It could mean that, although one thing is, the law that we're talking about is the California Environmental Quality Act, and there's been a lot of exemptions already, by the way, to that law for things like, if there's affordable housing being built or things like that, there's projects that can be, for lack of a better word, streamlined, right? So I want to caution saying slow down because over the years with the Environmental Quality Act in California, there's already been a lot of exemptions, which are good. For various reasons, right, to speed up development where it could be sped up or expedited. But there's going to have to be some process, right, done before any developer can just build. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's right. I feel like we, especially in the area of housing, it's such a delicate balance because you don't want to just let developers go, hog wild. But at the same time, if we don't speed up and make less expensive the process of putting housing in place, we're never going to catch up with the unhoused crisis and the affordability conundrum that we find ourselves in.
Yeah, that is, that's true. We need more housing, but when there's been a lot of studies done that it's not like if you look at the housing that's built in California, there's a lot of very housing that's unaffordable, right? That's a huge issue as well. We have some housing that's left vacant that's it's really unaffordable. So it's an issue of also capping rents and making sure prices aren't so high, making sure that folks have enough job security to be able to afford a home and things like that. It's a multifaceted issue.
Yeah, I know it is, and it's important to not be knee-jerk. I also know you do a lot of advocacy for renters, which is, also important. So you probably have a good view of the different nuances of this issue. I never thought about the fact in reality that when you build a new apartment, for example, you have to make sure that there's an adequate water supply for that. For example, and that is an issue of people having the basics that they need for life, but it's also an environmental issue, right? So sometimes you see push and pull between the needs of renters in an area and the needs of, say, the Sierra Club or someone like that. And I wonder how you navigate that or prioritize that as someone who's very active in the advocacy space for both of these important issues.
Yeah, it is tough. In Sacramento, the thing is, our organization, we focus a lot on climate bills. And it's I don't see them really in contrast. There's environmental justice organizations that we work with. One of those is SEHA, that does a lot of work in Wilmington, and surrounding areas like Carson and stuff like that too. And it's not really a conflict because, in fact, renters are the most, not just housing burden, right, but environmental burden. A lot of these folks are people of color. So a lot of these issues are actually very, very closely related. And so what's, good for them in terms of lowering their rents, right, is also good for them in terms of, like what type of housing should be built there and what type of land and, clean air and all these issues. It's very intersectional. So that's what I'm finding as an advocate, that, a lot of the groups that we work with in the environmental space, our organization doesn't necessarily, sponsor or directly, prioritize housing bills because we're a climate organization, but there are many environmental justice orgs that we work with that do, because this issue is so intersectional, and it's not necessarily a conflicting issue because a lot of these issues are very intrinsically related.
I imagine that you must have been happy to see Isabel Jurado do so well in the race. Now she's in a runoff against Kevin De Leon. We've got the disgraced and racist anti-renter former council member. Well, he is a current council member. I'm planning for Isabel to win, I guess. But she surprised everybody. A very progressive candidate, an attorney, and an advocate for renters. How do you take that?
Yeah, I think a lot of progressives were really, really excited, that she won. Probably unexpected, to your point, right? There were a lot of heavy hitters in that race from, sitting assembly members, Wendy Carrillo and, Miguel Santiago, who he got a lot of the labor endorsements and all of that. So, it's unexpected, but you're seeing what's happening on the city council, that progressives are getting through with a coordinated grassroots campaign. And so it's very exciting, very invigorating. I think it's one of the races that's really going to inspire us this season. And yes, hoping that, we don't want to jinx it, hoping that she'll definitely win, just for the sake of that district. As you mentioned, we do not want, a racist bigot, I don't think anyone in LA wants that, and hopefully not, people in that district.
Yeah, for the sake of the district, and really for the sake of the city, because it's time for us to unify, move on, and leave that. I know there's work to do, but leave at least that secret tape chapter behind us to the greater extent of the city council being able to do what we elect them to do, which is make things better for the people of Los Angeles. We've got news, traffic, and sports right now, then more. KBLA Talk 1580.
More of First Things First with Dominique DiPrima when we come forward.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Donald Trump's hush money trial is in recess until Thursday after some salacious testimony from adult film star Stormy Daniels. Daniels took the stand Tuesday and went into detail about her alleged sexual encounter with Trump, leading the judge to scold the prosecution about her degree of detail. Trump is accused of falsifying business records tied to paying Daniels to stay quiet about an alleged affair just prior to the 2016 election. The state of Washington could see its first ever black governor. Ilona Kearney is the only female candidate in the race to become the next governor. She's running against Attorney General Bob Ferguson and State Senator Mark Mullet for the Democratic nomination. If elected, the Army veteran would be the state's third female governor. And that's the latest. I'm Mike Moore from your 24/7 news source, the Black Information Network and BINnews.com.
Every day, a child in poverty waits for a sponsor is another day of hopelessness. There are thousands of kids who've been waiting over a year, and they're waiting. Sponsor a child with compassion today. Just text the word radio to 83393.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
A monumental development for the WNBA. For the first time in the league's 27-year history, every team will have charter flights for all road games this season. In the previous 26 years, all teams were forced to travel on commercial flights. WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert said the use of private jets will help address concerns of travel fatigue for players and safety concerns when players had to walk through airports. The WNBA's 12 teams will play 40 regular season games, 20 on the road. The NBA will announce its Most Valuable Player Award today. The winner will be revealed on TNT's Inside the NBA pregame show. The three finalists are Luka Doncic of Dallas, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander of Oklahoma City, and Denver center Nikola Jokic. Clippers guard Russell Westbrook is a finalist for the NBA's Social Justice Champion Award. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
To help combat climate change, LADWP is helping neighborhoods have better access to electric vehicles by awarding nearly $130 million in EV rebates to customers just like you. From big savings on used EVs to building new charging plazas, LADWP is charging ahead to help all Angelenos experience the benefits of EVs. Get rebates of up to $4,000 for a used EV and $1,750 for a charger. Learn more at ladwp.com/EV. That's ladwp.com/EV.
JP Morgan Chase is building on the investments in California to help close the racial wealth gap and build a more equitable future. Visit jpmorganchase.com/racial equity and get the tools to help reach your financial goals.
I have diabetes. I'm at risk for pneumococcal pneumonia.
I have asthma. I'm at risk, too.
If you're 19 or older with chronic conditions like asthma, diabetes, COPD, or heart disease, or are 65 or older, you are at increased risk for pneumococcal pneumonia. Ask your doctor or pharmacist about Prevnar 20, pneumococcal 20-valent conjugate vaccine, a Pfizer vaccine that can help protect you against pneumococcal pneumonia in just one dose. Even if you've already been vaccinated with other pneumonia vaccines, Prevnar 20 may help provide added protection. Prevnar 20 is approved for adults to help prevent infections from 20 strains of the bacteria that cause pneumococcal pneumonia. Continued approval may depend on a supportive study. Don't get Prevnar 20 if you've had a severe allergic reaction to the vaccine or its ingredients. Adults with weakened immune systems may have a lower response to the vaccine. Side effects include pain and swelling at the injection site, fatigue, headache, muscle, and joint pain. For full prescribing information, please call 1-855-213-2138 or visit Prevnar20.com.
Hi, I'm Henry Winkler. My eyes are very important to me. My eyes connect me with everything I love. I loved my late father-in-law dearly. He always lit up a room, but his vision dimmed with age. He had age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. And since partnering with Apellis, I've learned there's an advanced form of dry AMD called geographic atrophy, or GA. His struggle with vision loss made me want to help others know about GA's warning signs. For some, colors appear dull or washed out. For others, hazy or blurred vision make it hard to see details, like fine print on price tags. Many have trouble seeing in the dark, making driving at night difficult. GA gets worse over time and cannot be reversed. If you think you have GA, don't wait. Treatments are available. Ask a retina specialist about FDA-approved treatments for GA and go to gawon'twait.com.
Sherman, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it. When you're rolling Sherman, don't you stop on the party. Let's go close the way back, everybody. Sherman, give me six of this song and Helen night. The group is always top. It's our party night. Sherman Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Sherman.
When you use Bounce dryer sheets and your clothes look amazing, it's the sheet. Less static in your life? Yeah, it's the sheet. Smelling fresher than ever? It's the sheet. Oh, so soft fabric? Ooh la la. It's the sheet. Less wrinkles on your clothes? You know it's the sheet. Bounce dryer sheets. More freshness, more softness. Less static, less wrinkles. It's the sheet.
Thanks for waking up with Dominique DiPrima on KBLA Talk 1580.
Thank you for waking up with Dominique DiPrima and Fatima Iqbal Zubair. Fatima, are you running for office again anytime soon? We see that in your future?
Thank you for putting me in this position and asking.
Sorry.
I'm.
So is that a no comment? We allow no comment.
All right, yeah, no comment for now.
Okay, cool. Yeah, but we'll be the first to know, right?
All right, yes, I promise.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah, so warehouses, it's another one of these things that people really, let me not say people, say I don't fully get, because I was excited at first when we started hearing about more and more warehouses being built in San Bernardino, out, on the Inland Empire because of jobs, right? And then we heard the struggles within, a lot of those are Amazon, a lot of those are serving Amazon, the struggles with labor, organizing, and the work conditions, which I know there is, some great work being done by the folks that staff these warehouses to improve the conditions. But I didn't even think about the fact that this could be something that would be a problem. And then last year we saw where, like, AQMD said more than half of the Southern California warehouses were violating clean air rules, and they started saying they were cracking down on warehouse pollution at the end of the year last year. We heard that 100 violations had already been handed out with big fines to warehouses because they're not complying with regulations to cut the smog that they produce. It's all these unintended consequences. Then I also read that these warehouses are starting to comply, and they're starting to bring their facilities up to code. So I don't know whether to be happy for Kern County or worried for Kern County when I see that this billionaire there is looking to make this their big new deal. And this is the middle of the state. I always talk about California being bipolar. A lot of the middle of the state is very conservative. But they say they want to be the new frontier, according to the LA Times, for industrial scale warehousing out there in Kern County. Is this a job bonus, or is it an environmental menace?
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing this up. I think when people think of warehouses, the first thing I want to clear up is the environmental movement isn't in favor of eliminating warehouses. It's more about safe warehouse development. And so what that means is that, when we see warehouses, it's not just the warehouse that is causing, environmental impacts like you mentioned at the site, but it's the fact that there's trucks, right, going into and out of these warehouses in the transit corridors that are right next to black and brown communities. And then when you have a high concentration of these warehouses within the span of a few communities, which is actually the case, I'm sure if you look at Kern County, it's in the county, but it's really saturated, right? In few communities, we talked early in this conversation about oil drilling. But it's not just oil drilling, right? It's when you have industrial sites, and when you have impacts like trucks having to go in and out, pollution happening at the site. That's what it's about. It's about safe development of these warehouses, right? Figuring out how we can have mitigation measures. And there was a bill, in the legislature, AB 1000, that's now kind of turned into a working group, select committee in the legislature. But to think about things like electrifying the trucks, electrifying operations at the warehouses and things like that. Because you're right, when you have a bunch of wealthy people, you got to question the profit motive there, right? But and here's the thing. One thing too in terms of the economic impact is that folks at these warehouses, yes, there's jobs, as you mentioned, and it's not about taking away those jobs. And it's about also we need to think about different economic opportunities for people living in these communities. If you go to communities where there's a lot of warehousing happening, folks that are in high school are said, well, this is where you're going into next, right? The college is so expensive and, you're going to be working in these warehouses, and that might be fine, right, for some people where that is a pathway, that is an interest they want to pursue. But let's diversify the opportunities available. So, from an environmental perspective, it's about mitigation, and also from an economic perspective, it's about saying, well, give folks more options, right, in where they can work in and pursue their education.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it makes sense. I just think it's something we do have to be aware of. As you say, it's not just a warehouse, it's the trucks going in and out. And we had a conversation earlier this week with an engineer from DWP, and we were talking about the electrification of trucks, and this is a recurring conversation. We have Randy from Watts and a couple others that drive trucks or have trucking companies that call in, and they're always concerned when you put requirements for electric vehicles, then it can burden again Black-owned or BIPOC-owned smaller businesses owned by anybody. For a Coca-Cola bottling or whatever, their trucks might not be a big deal, but it could be a hardship for a mom and pop single truck operation or a small firm. And also Randy and others, I hear this conversation a lot about how, electric trucks aren't really that, or electric cars aren't really that much better because they have batteries that require all these minerals, and then once the battery goes, that becomes electronic waste, and they're expensive. And so how do you, as an environmental activist who's really committed to this, how do you address those concerns of the effectiveness and expensiveness of going electric?
Yeah. Speaking of the transportation sector, something like 40% of our emissions actually come from that sector. So yeah, to your point, we can go down that rabbit hole and kind of talk about the batteries, and you're not wrong in that, right? There's been documentaries on it. It's true, but I think at the end of the day, the people that are impacted by pollution just want to live longer. And honestly, what that means, Dominique, is we got to get diesel, right? Diesel pollution off the streets. And a lot of that is truck pollution. And so there's a bill actually in the legislature right now called Invest in Clean Air Act. Because to your point, there's a lot of mom and pop shops, but there's also a lot of, state money, right? State agency money that could put to investing in this sort of clean air, and zero emission infrastructure. So this bill, AB 2535, by Assembler Baraka, which is she's a Northern California black legislator, is actually going to modernize a program that already exists, right? Because remember, we have these programs, right, in the state. We just have to kind of realign them. And this was called the Trade Corridor Enhancement Program that will actually prioritize investing in electric vehicle charging and fueling infrastructure, and putting in place environmental safeguards for the communities most burdened to sort of prevent things like highway expansion, right? And so the point I'm trying to get to here is that for those small mom and pop shops, it's not just on them, right? The state can invest in making the infrastructure easier, which is going to then make it easier and cheaper to get those kinds of trucks. It's going to lead to all sorts of ripple effects. So that's why, our political will is really important because we have the means to invest in this. AB 2535 this session is one bill that's actually trying to do that.
Yeah, and it sounds like you're saying whatever the concerns are with electric vehicles, getting the diesel and the fossil fuels off the air is still a priority because that's what, most immediately impacts people's health and their longevity.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, if you go to a black and brown community in South LA right now and you ask someone at the door, do you know the process of how these batteries are really impacting you, these electric batteries? They're not going to really feel that impact right away in the next 10, 20, 30 years or for their child. But if you say, do you smell the air? Do you smell the diesel? They say, oh, yeah, these trucks go by my house all the time and I smell it. And it's impacting them. And the truth is, Dominique, the actual health impact of why their life is going to be shorter, it's not to do with the long-term impact of battery recycling. It's to do with the diesel pollution that's right in their backyard right now.
Yeah.
And so if we're talking about environmental justice, right, we have to address the issues that are impacting people in the next 50 years, the next 60 years. Those long-term solutions of, 100% looking at battery recycling and all these things are good, but it's not really the survival mechanism that our frontline communities need, which is getting rid of transit pollution right now.
Yeah, and I would add, because I'm big on this, that it's not just how long you live, it's the quality of life while you're here. I always say that. I don't say it as much since I had a child, but for me, the priority is being able to feel good and be disease-free as much as possible while I'm on the planet more than how long I stay, because quality of life, right, and so many of us are suffering from things that may be pollution-related, whether it's cancer, lung disease, all kinds of other impacts that even if you live longer, that your life is not as wonderful because you're battling something that isn't even, your fault. It isn't even your doing. It's just a matter of the disproportionate impact that polluters have in our communities. We're talking with Fatima Iqbal Zubair. You're welcome to call in 800-920-1580. We are unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Say the quiet part out loud. KBLA Talk 1580.
We ask seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up. Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They want to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement. Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your Senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
The news on vapes talks a lot about the technology and teen use, but parents need to know more about the dangers of nicotine. So know this. 1. Nicotine is a poison that can rewire teens' brains. 2. It can increase mood swings. 3. It can limit attention and learning. So even when it comes in new tech, nicotine is brain poison. Go to undo.org for more.
Sometimes I struggle to get to sleep. My body stopped for the day, but my mind is still running. So I take ZQuil.
ZQuil, the world's #1 sleep aid brand, has a range of non-habit-forming products to fit you and your family's needs. Invest in a great night's sleep for the best you tomorrow.
I'm awake and ready to take on anything.
Better days start with ZQuil nights. Explore our products at ZQuil.com. Use keep out of reach of children.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend on you. No matter the weather, emergency, or time of day, you're the ones who get it done. At Grainger, we're here for you with professional-grade industrial supplies. Count on real-time product availability and fast delivery. Call, clickgrainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
So you just used bug spray in your home. Now what? Well, between the waiting and waiting for things to dry up and keeping your family away from the mess, it hits you. You could have used Zevo. Unlike other bug sprays that stick around, Zevo goes from kill to clean in seconds. Plus, it's safe for use around people and pets when used as directed. Zevo, people-friendly, bug-deadly.
What's up, family? It's Slink Johnson, here for Original Taco Pete, home of the tasty black taco. Come enjoy our delectable menu at 3272 West Slauson Ave off Crenshaw, right off the K-Line. Catering and delivery is available through Grubhub, Uber Eats, or at originaltacopete.com. And don't forget to bring a veteran this Veterans Day, and they'll receive a free taco. Thank you for your service. See you there.
KBLA Talk 1580, where hate loses and love wins.
Okay, I want to talk to you, Fatima Iqbal Zubair, about another environmental issue, and then the elephant in the room. We'll get to the elephant in the room. First, I wanted to hone in a little bit on this story that Asha found about these reservoirs that are being drained near the California-Oregon border. And they're actually trying to bring a natural river back to its original state and, planting seeds in all this area that was formerly submerged by these reservoirs. And, I guess the First Nations folks are happy about it. I probably will never go up to the Oregon-California border to see, but it seems like a good idea, the regreening and restoration of a river. Tell me why that's important to those of us who don't live at the California-Oregon border.
Yeah, I think, a lot of what we talked about in this conversation, Dominique, the impacts of climate change, a lot of that has to do with drought, has to do with the land being damaged, right? The impacts are near where we live, but it's also in not protecting our natural spaces. Right, and that is also a black and brown issue if you think about access to these spaces, whether it's indigenous community or things like that. So I think that this is a really important issue, and I think, at the very basic, kind of aspect of environmental justice is making sure we have access to land and access to water. Yeah. And so I do think this is a great idea. I get saddened when I think about all the wildfires, all of the sort of the Amazon forest and how that's being abused for different industries and things like that. And so I think, protecting this, especially if it's led by indigenous communities, I think is powerful, right? Because we know the history of colonization and what that's done to land and water and all of that, and the impact that war is having, and all of that. So yeah, I'm definitely for that. At Enviro-Voters, we have an initiative that we're supporting that's part of the state, which is called 30 by 30, protecting 30%, of our land and our water and stuff like that, at least, and so it's important because we see the impact, like we've talked about, that polluters have had. So having these spaces is kind of our way to preserve what we have against, industry improvement.
Yeah, it's the Karuk tribe. I guess they've been campaigning to get rid of these dams for decades, and now they are taking out these dams using explosives and heavy machinery to remove dams. It reminds me of something I read about in Northern California, where they're looking at how before, and not just in Northern California, but around the nation, where they're looking at how before rivers would overflow, and that would create, greenery all around the river, and it would help restore the groundwater. But when we, dam and so-called manage our rivers so that we don't allow that overflow, we dry up the land and make the groundwater, which many of us rely on to drink or for farming, dry up. And so now there's a movement to let the rivers be rivers and let them overflow into the land and create that lush green area and things. And so it seems to me that that part of the environmental movement of restoring things that nature had working and we thought we had a better idea, it gives me hope in a different kind of way about, just our ability to bring back life and bring back resources that we have ravaged.
Yes, 100%. And I love that idea. And I think a lot of times we have to, trust nature, like you're talking about the process of rivers overflowing instead of trying to control from it, profit from it, right? So I think that is a beautiful process that's happening there.
Okay, Fatima Iqbal Zubair. So you are, leading the California Democratic Caucus, and it may not be a big issue here, but it is the elephant in the room, I think, for our nation, which is that a lot of young people and progressives are mad at President Joe Biden because of Gaza, because of other foreign policy elements, but specifically right now a lot because of the way he's handling the crisis in the Middle East. And young voters are moving away from him. Progressives are moving away from him. But when it comes to environmental impacts, he is the clear choice, but you don't hear that. You don't hear a lot of conversation. Or do you disagree with that he's not the clear choice, that maybe, RFK or Cornel West or even Donald Trump are a better pick for environmental voters? Yeah.
No, thanks for asking this question. I'm going to say I'm speaking as chair and as in my personal capacity because I can't speak on this on behalf of Enviro-Voters. But let's also I'm happy to come back for a separate whole conversation on Gaza because that is an issue that's, near and dear to me. But, I would say this, if I were to give a short and quick answer here, is that I don't think the president has been dealing with this in the best way, and I think you're seeing that with Democratic voters, the vast majority of who support a ceasefire. We're seeing what's happening in Rafah, what's happening in, there is crazy. I personally believe it is 100% a genocide with the level of scope of, a death we're seeing, right, from causes that are caused directly by famine and the bombing, from the Israeli government. And so I do think, when Dominique, what the issue is here with this crisis is that our taxpayer money is funding that, and that's the difference. There are people that ask, well, I care about this as opposed to what's happening in other places in the world that are experiencing strife, and that, the difference is that we are funding the bombing, the continuous bombing of this, right, of civilians. And so
yeah, I mean, and Fatima, just so you know, we talk about this all the time. Like, this is not rare for our morning conversations, and I know that it's turning people away from Biden. The speech he gave yesterday, there's nothing wrong with the Holocaust Remembrance Day speech, but why do you only talk about anti-Semitism and make it and draw a line to campus protests? That's not, there's no, that's a false equivalency. But my question was really, is he getting credit for, or should he get credit for being the environmentally best choice in the race right now?
Okay, let me address that. So here's the thing. So the reality of it is, and some progressives may not like what I'm saying, but here's the reality of it. Right now in America, we're in a two-party system, and our choice is really, even though there's other candidates between Trump and Biden, right? Particularly if you look at the swing states, right? Like Pennsylvania and other states. He is the better environmental choice. Because if you look at what Trump did, he, undid a lot of the environmental protections, including undoing the actual federal agency, the EPA at the federal level, and just like loosening clean air standards federally. It was devastating the things that Trump, bought during his tenure. So right now in the system we have in America, which is a two-party system, Biden is the better choice when it comes to the environmental movement, and that is very clear. I just read an article yesterday, just reminding me that, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, a very progressive congresswoman, has been championing the Green New Deal, and Biden during his tenure has brought, a big aspect of that, which I believe is sort of like, bringing forth the jobs aspect of, a sort of like, climate jobs, right? That aspect of it is huge that he kind of was able to pass under his tenure. And so there's a lot of things Biden has done. And I think what's happening with the war in the genocide in Gaza, right, is that it's been overshadowing a lot of that. And, I don't blame voters for that, rightly so. But the thing is, in the system we have to think of our choice really is Trump or Biden. That's really who we have, right? So.
Well, Fatima, thank you so much for being with us. And absolutely, I'd love to have you come back, and we can talk about, the slaughter, the horror that's going on in Gaza and get your take on that. I so appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me on. I'm happy to come back to discuss that too, Dominique. Thank you.
Wealth Building Wednesday and your phone calls next on KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
Thank you for joining us, everyone. I'm Mike Moore. Here's the latest from the Black Information Network. Just testimony from adult film star Stormy Daniels. Daniels took the stand Tuesday and went into detail about her alleged sexual encounter with